Thank you guys so much again for being here. I know I'm super excited to be here talking with you. Since Julia first brought you guys up, I've been following along with your channel and your story. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
yeah, super excited to be able to talk to you guys. So, I think a good place to start is, at least for people who are seeing this who aren't familiar with you, would you mind just letting us know who you guys are?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm Liz McMahon,
I,
and this is my husband.
Rich McMahon.
And we are living in Cranston, Rhode Island with our 8-year-old son, Richie, who is at school.
Yeah.
Who I'm sure would love to be here, but he's
Yeah.
at school.
No snow days today, right?
Yeah, thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Mhm.
Oh, right. So tell us a little bit about your stroke story and that part of your life, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, um, I got furry in my nose, and just and I could have get you.
So, so clearly, Richie's
Get
stroke
the
has,
nose, like,
yeah,
yeah,
Rich's stroke has affected his speech center. So he has expressive aphasia. So I end up doing a lot of the storytelling.
yeah,
So on October 11th of last year, 2025, Rich was actually detailing a car. He had started like a side business as a mobile detailer, and he was doing his first kind of big detail. It was for a local influencer. And so he was over there. My son and I were at home, and I also had started a business last year. So we were actually at our storage unit getting some stuff for that. And um, Rich sent me a text at about like 11 o'clock, and he said, "Can you look up what it means when there's a flashing in your eye?" And I was confused because it came out of nowhere. And I said, "What are you talking about? I need more context." And he said, "I have felt a pop in my neck, and now it feels like somebody is shining a flashlight in his eye."
Mhm.
And
yeah,
I said, "Oh, okay." I did a quick Google search. It said ocular migraine, and I said, "It's probably a migraine. Um, you're probably fine." And he said, "Okay, I think I'm just going to go to the emergency room to make sure I'm not having a stroke." And I was super confused. He didn't have any predisposition to a stroke. He doesn't have high blood pressure. He doesn't have high cholesterol. And I legitimately wrote back, "Why would you be having a stroke?" And he said, "I'm probably not, but I'm just going to make sure." And so he went to Kent County here in Cranston, went up to the counter and said, "I think I'm having a stroke." And they, of course, they brought him right back.
yeah,
And they examined him and they said, "We think it might be an ocular migraine." And so he was kind of waiting. He sent me a text and said, "I don't really think you need to come up here, but I'll let you know." And I said, "Okay." And then he sent me a text like 20 minutes later and he said, "They want to talk to you, so we need you to come up." And I said, "Okay." So, our son and I were together. We went up, and what had happened in those 20 minutes is that while he was standing kind of waiting to be discharged, his entire right side went completely numb. And he started, yelling like, "Something's wrong, something's wrong." And they got him into imaging, and they saw that his left carotid artery was blocked. They couldn't see what it was blocked by, but they could just see that it was blocked. So by the time we had gotten up there, nobody had told me anything. Nobody had said like, "Oh, your husband had a stroke" or anything. So we walked in and the room was full of people. It was like multiple nurses, multiple doctors, pharmacists, the whole thing. And I kind of was like, "What, are we having a party? Like, what is going on?"
huh,
And everybody was super serious, but also it was like very like a lighthearted seriousness. So I couldn't quite gauge how emergent it really was. And then a doctor came in and she started talking about taking a clot buster medication. And she kind of had said, like, "Oh, do you want your son to be in the room while we're talking about this?" And, she was like, "It's kind of like scary." And I was like, "No, like, first of all, I understand that he's young, but I would have to tell him anyway, whatever she was
Mhm.
going to tell me." So
yeah,
I was like, "You know what? It better come from you because then at least you can't shoot
yeah,
this messenger."
yeah,
And she just went into um, kind of like the risks of taking the clotbuster medication, which there is a 30% chance of a brain bleed in people who are predisposed to brain bleeds, which Rich did not fit that category. Um, And she kind of wasn't that confident about us taking it. She had actually said if it was me and you can live with the symptoms, I wouldn't take it. And
Mhm.
so that freaked us out, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then she kind of left the room, and everybody else in the room was just like staring at us. And I was like, what are we doing? Everybody said we would take it. If it was us, we would take it. If it was our loved ones, we would take it. And then a neurologist came by, and I said, the emergency room doctor kind of advised against taking this medication. So I'm kind of confused about which way to proceed. And she said, she never should have said that to you. This is really the only intervention that we have. Um, we can take him to Rhode Island Hospital, which is the bigger hospital, and they will recommend taking this medication. So because they didn't really know what the blockage was caused by, that was just the first, it's like the first intervention. So
Yeah.
we decided, okay, we're going to do it. And they gave him the medication, and we were all kind of like sitting around. And then they said, we're waiting to hear from Rhode Island Hospital about whether or not they want to transfer you over there. Rhode Island Hospital is the only hospital that does a thrombectomy, which Rich would have needed and ultimately did end up needing, if kind of like the clot buster didn't work out. So he transferred over there. They did an MRI. The MRI said that he had a stroke, but that there was no damage. So that was Saturday. I went up to see him. I brought him his glasses and his charger. I didn't think really anything of it. We talked to the nurses. The nurses said, he'll be discharged tomorrow if everything goes well. And that was it. It was like, gave him a kiss. He was super tired. And, I was like, okay, I'll see you in the morning. And then the next day it was like 6 o'clock, my phone rang, and it was the neurosurgeon,
Mhm.
Dr. Tarabi. And he said, your husband needs to go into an emergency procedure. And he starts talking, and I'm super confused because I'm thinking, my husband's fine. And I said, are you sure you're calling the right person? Because
You're
my
talking
husband's
about
fine. I was just there,
discharge, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, is this Elizabeth McMahon? And I think I literally said, unfortunately, yes, it is. And he said, is your husband Rich? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, they woke him up at 4:30.
Mhm.
So when you take that clot buster to, assess if you're having a brain bleed, they wake you up every 30 minutes for the first, I think, like 6 hours or 8 hours, and then every hour.
Mhm.
So he was woken up at 4:30, passed the assessment. He went back to sleep. They woke him up at 5:30, and he couldn't talk.
Mhm.
So they got him into imaging. They saw that a clot had broken off and gone to his brain. And they brought him right into the thrombectomy. And, Dr. Tarabi called me back like maybe an hour later. And he said, we were able to get the clot off your brain. And we were also able to see why this is happening. So the cause of Rich's strokes were from a carotid artery dissection, which is a tear on the innermost layer of your carotid artery, and it basically like creates a pocket in between the two layers where the blood can go up and clot. um, I think that doctor originally kind of thought it was going to be the emergency room doctor. I think she thought it was going to be a situation where we needed a stent. Like,
Mhm.
I think she thought it was like cholesterol or whatever that is. um, and I had said to the neurosurgeon, actually, I said, if we had done a stent, would we have been in better shape? Like, would this have happened? And he said, if we had done a stent, it would have been catastrophic
Mhm.
because we didn't know what was going on, and basically, would have been terrible. So I felt better actually when he said that, which is, that we had made the right decision to go with the
Yeah.
clotbuster. Because when a doctor says, like, oh, this is what we say to do, but I wouldn't do it, all of a sudden there's a lot of insecurity there that, am I making the right decision? And it's one of those situations where you're like, is there an adult present? Because I can't make these decisions, like
That
I
makes you
still
feel
feel like,
really good hearing, here's what we're telling you, but I'm not going to do that on my own end.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm thinking, like, what? And so then when the doctor initially called and said, like, we have to go into this emergency procedure and blah, blah, I'm thinking, I did the wrong thing. Like I should have said no. I should have told him to get a stent. So when he said that later, I felt a lot better. Um, because it would have been catastrophic. So, I mean, obviously a lot
Yeah.
better.
Mhm.
So he had the thrombectomy, and I had said to the doctor, "Is he speaking?" And he said, "Well, we're trying to wake him up right now." And I'm thinking, trying, and and I kind of said half serious, "Well, he's not going to die, right?" And the doctor said, I hope not, but I can't tell you for sure."
Mhm.
And so that was when I really was um, really like shown how serious the situation was.
Mhm.
I've never met anybody who's had a stroke. He doesn't know anybody who's had a stroke. It's always been kind of one of those mysterious things where, people joke about it. You slur your words and you say, "Oh, am I having a stroke?"
Yeah.
Or, and so I had no idea how. I didn't even know like really what a stroke was.
Mhm.
Or, I knew blood clots were serious. I knew all of that stuff, but I didn't understand how serious it was. So, I made arrangements for our son and I went up to the hospital thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly, but
Yeah.
what I was expecting was not what I walked into. And I was hit with the reality of this is extremely serious. This is life altering. And now what? He was totally out of it. He would wake up for, a couple minutes here and there, but for the most part, he was sleeping. Um, and so he was there that was Sunday morning. So the second stroke was Sunday morning between 4:30 and 5:30. We're lucky that he was at Rhode Island Hospital because they were able to act immediately and, saved his life, honestly.
Yeah.
And because of how quickly they were able to intervene, the stroke was very large, but it wasn't the way his neurologist described it was that it wasn't as dense. So she had said, if you picture a field of flowers, a regular stroke kills all of the flowers. But the stroke that your husband had, it's almost like every third flower. So that made me feel better for sure. Um, and his stroke was in the Broca center of his brain, so the speech center. Um, and he had some right side, not paralysis, but immobility.
Yeah.
His legs kind of came back almost within like the first couple hours after the thrombectomy. But his right arm took a few days to even show any movement. Um, and when he was in the hospital, he was a handful. He was like, he pulled out his NG tube. They had to put like mitts on it, tie him to bed. Yeah, like he tried to get
You were a
out of bed.
troublemaker, huh?
Yeah. No.
He had to have a full-time sitter,
Yeah.
which ended up being a blessing, honestly, because the two women that sat with him I think they were nursing students, and
Yeah.
they were incredible because even though Rich was in such a state, you know what I mean? Like they treated him with just incredible care and they
Yeah.
treated him like he was still there. They treated him
Mhm.
with dignity and respect and that he deserves. And they treated him like a human being,
Yeah.
One of them was just joking around with him and they were just really sweet, but also they were very encouraging to
Yeah.
me. Because there was a neurologist on staff who really was not uh very positive. I think she would say that she was a realist. Um, and every time I talked to her, she would just like deliver like traumatic blow after traumatic blow. Like she said, I wouldn't expect your husband to walk unassisted. I wouldn't expect him to eat without a feeding tube. I wouldn't expect him to ever have a conversation with you. And when she said all of those things, it was like literally getting slapped over and over again. And also,
Okay.
it didn't make sense to me,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he's only 53. Like, there's no way. And she had said so she had said, like, oh, he'll never walk unassisted. And I was just thinking, like, okay, well, we can deal with that. What's a cane? What's a walker? What's even a wheelchair? Like, we can figure that out. And then the feeding tube that she had actually said it after he had passed his swallow test and she didn't read the chart. So she came in and said, if he doesn't pass, she came in all hot. If he doesn't pass this swallow test, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to think about a permanent feeding tube. And she went on, and the aide was with me, and we both were looking at her. And then I finally said, he passed it this morning. Like, shouldn't that be in his chart? And she was like, oh, that's wonderful news. And it's just one of those things where, how dare you come in here? Number one, I'm prepared.
Mhm.
Number one, I'm
Yeah.
prepared. But then to just come in so hot and kind of like read me the riot act about this feeding tube, and I better be mentally prepared for this, and then to just switch and go, oh, well, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
It
It
doesn't
just,
excuse everything that came before that switch.
yeah. And then, but even if he had a feeding tube, we could have done, you know what I mean? We could have dealt with that. There's things that
Mhm.
we can deal with. But then when I asked, I said, well, what about his speech? When do you think we'll start to see signs of it coming back? And this was this was the day before he was transferred to inpatient rehab that I asked her. And he was so out of it. And she just said, I would never expect to have a conversation like you and I are having. I would never expect to have that with your husband again. And that was crushing when she said that, because that is not who my husband is. My
Mhm.
husband is not a silent person. He's the life of the party. He's never met a stranger. He's larger than life. And for her to say that, I was like, no, I can't deal with that. And I said, I don't accept that. I just don't accept that. And she said it in front of him. And that made me want to fist fight her, because I was like, how dare you? How dare you say that in front of him? Because what if, thankfully, he doesn't remember,
I didn't see it.
but I am traumatized for life. But how dare you say that? Because what if he did hear you? What if he did
Mhm.
remember you saying that? And then you kind of already take the fight out of somebody.
Yeah.
So that was the prognosis going to rehab. Then he was transferred to Vanderbilt, which is in Newport Hospital. And they assessed him, the next day that he got there. And he was assessed at a 3 out of 100. So he was profoundly impaired when he, was admitted. He couldn't, he couldn't speak.
Yeah.
He couldn't walk, no matter how many times he tried to get out of bed. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, he didn't know what happened, he didn't remember anything that happened. I had actually, his real ID, a month before his stroke, he had to get his real ID.
Mhm.
And it was a whole thing. And the two of us were kind of like yelling at each other about it, because he didn't have the stuff and why didn't I know to have it? And so it came in the mail, and I brought it in, and I go, look what it came today. And he looked at it, and I said, do you remember getting this? And he had no idea. And I was thinking, oh boy, like he doesn't remember that. So he really didn't have like any memory for a couple months before his stroke. He didn't know what year it was. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know where he was. He knew who me and my son were. But, if we walked out of his right side, if we walked into his periphery on his right side, he couldn't see us. He kind of would forget we were there. So it was very tough in the beginning that he was there. His right arm, he had twitched his shoulder in the hospital, and he was starting to get like very small mobility, but for the most part he was picking it up.
Yeah.
Picking it up, or like,
Now it's good.
yeah, now it's great. But or we'd come in and he'd be like, he'd our son would get into bed with him, and he'd scooch over, and he would just be sitting all the way on his hand.
Mhm.
And me and my son would be like, hello, you're sitting on your hand, and he would just go up, and pull it out. And it was just all of these things that I was not really mentally prepared for.
Mhm.
But really, but also like the physical things, yes, they were a challenge. And obviously I want him to be back as close to 100% as possible. But really the physical stuff wasn't what worried me. It really was the speech.
Mhm.
And so after the first couple of days we were there, his he had a neurologist who's really wonderful. And she had said to me, I wouldn't be surprised if I walked in there and he started talking, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he didn't. And so that kind of gave me like a little shred of hope to hang on to.
Mm.
And she said, if you can get him to try to talk, then we're in good shape, because then his brain will figure out this isn't working, and how are we going to fix it? She said if he's not even trying to talk, then we're in trouble, because his brain has just kind of like shut that part off. But if you can get him to try to talk. So I'm like, okay. He didn't really want to try to talk to me, which was okay. When he saw our son the first day, he perked up a lot, and
Yeah.
he tried to, like, he moved his mouth. And I was kind of super relieved, because I was like, okay, at least there was, the connection. He tried to say, hey, buddy. And but he only tried that one time, really. And then we went to rehab. And then a couple days in, I think it was 4 or 5 days in, he was sitting in the bed with our son, and we had written on the big whiteboard, "We love you." And my son says, "Oh, Daddy, can you read that?" And Rich is looking at it, and he's looking at it. And then he's like, whoa, whoa. And he was able to work out "we." So that was huge, because we're like, okay, number one, his brain can read, and number two, his mouth can pull it out.
Going.
Yes. So that was a big deal especially for me, because I was like, once he did that, I was like, okay, we're good. And then our son was so cute, because he's like, okay, what's the next word, Daddy? What's the next word? Rich was like, I'm too tired. I can't do that.
Wait there.
Yeah.
Right there.
And so for the first, it's hard. I don't remember like the timelines or anything. It was such a blur. But then for a few days, he just said we. And it was just, we'd come in and we'd be sitting there watching TV, and he'd be like, we. I'm like, okay. We're very proud of you. I would say,
let's get a new one.
Yeah. We're very proud of you, but we get it. And that was kind of it. And I was like, even if, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, even if he just says we, like, we can work with that. It's not ideal, but at least it's something. And then one day we came in, and he just started counting. And our son was just like, our son is a mini speech therapist. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
I've seen that in your TikTok reel.
Yeah.
It's just, I would be shocked if he went into anything else,
Yeah.
honestly.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
he's so good at it.
Yeah.
And he's so patient. And, I said to him, I said, I think you would be like really, really good at this if you went into it as an adult. And he goes, me too, but that's a lot of college, Mom. And I was like, well, let's worry about second grade first.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it was almost like, the perfect timing, because Rich does have apraxia, and Richie, our son, had just learned how to form all the letter sounds, how the letter sounds should sound, what your mouth should look like in school.
Mhm.
So it was perfect, because as you get older, I was even trying to help Richie like with his letters and stuff. And I'd be like, okay, let's sound out this word. And he'd be like, that is not what that letter sounds like, Mom. That's not the letter sound. As you get older, you just kind of like, oh no, it's whatever. And Richie would just be like, that's not the sound, Mom. I'm like, okay. So he stepped in for that, thankfully.
Yeah.
And he was really cute. They had a mirror, and he's like, look at my mouth, Daddy. Look at your mouth. Look at my mouth. So we think he'll be a speech therapist. We're hoping for a speech therapist. And so once he started counting, I was doing a lot of Googling how to help stroke recovery, all of these things. And I came across something that said it's easier to curse than it is to talk. And so we went in one day, and I said, okay, let's take a video of Daddy, and I'm going to teach him some new words. And so that's where all of the cursing videos came from. And I uploaded it to TikTok just kind of as my own record, because I didn't feel like I was in it. I felt like I was kind of like out of body. And I also wanted to have a record of how well he was recovering, so that we could look back on it. And, because I didn't know how much he would remember either. I didn't think that it would go viral, which it did. It ended up getting like 17 million views or something. And now it's like still going, which is just crazy. But we ended up, getting this like following of people who are speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, stroke survivors, caregivers, and just literally the most incredible people who are rooting for Rich.
Rich, yeah.
Yeah. And I always say this is such a terrible club to be in, but the members are so incredible.
Yeah.
And just hearing about everybody's personal story, you know, with their strokes. My dad had a stroke, my mom, my grandfather, my brother, this. And some of them were really positive, you know. We never thought my brother would walk again and he just ran a marathon, and some of them were not. Some of them were, you know, my grandfather never came back, or all he could say was shit for the rest of his life or whatever. But it was very encouraging to hear the positive stories. And then it really made me sad to hear the ones that were not.
Yeah.
But it also showed me that there's definitely like a void out there for people who are going through this to like normalize it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's a very isolating experience, and especially once you come home from rehab. So when we were in rehab, when Rich was in rehab, and me and Richie were just running around all of the time, everybody was reaching out. What can we do? How can we help you? You know, and everybody wanted to take Richie. Can we take Richie? Can we do something with Richie? Can we? And I'm like, no, you can't take him. Number one, we are trauma bonded. We are already so tight, but now we are trauma bonded. But he didn't want to be with anybody else, and I didn't want him to be with anybody else. You know, there was a handful of people who would say, let us take him for a play date. Let us give him some normalcy. Yeah. And he would do that. But, you know, all of these kind of strangers came out of the woodwork and would say like, oh, do you want us to take him? You know, and it's like, well, where were you for the past 8 years when I could have used some help, you know? But then we kind of came home, and that stuff all dies down. Understandably, everybody goes back to their life, but kind of everybody wants you to go back to your life too. And, you know, they're like, okay, well, like Rich is home, so we're good, right? We're good. We're back to our old schedule. And the support kind of falls off. We do have an incredible support system of moms here who are just really have gone above and beyond and are amazing. But other groups of friends, other family members, they just kind of go back to their own life. And I understand why. Yeah, I do. But if you don't have a supportive spouse, or if you have a spouse who has to go right back to work and you don't have that community, you're just at home, you know? And I think part of the reason that Rich has recovered as well as he's recovered is because he wasn't alone for even 1 minute for the first 4.5 months he was home. I just went back to work a couple weeks ago. And even then he's only home alone for he probably likes being home alone for a couple hours now. But, you know, then he goes and gets our son. Yeah. But for the first 4.5 months, we didn't go anywhere. We were together all of the time, which is how we were before his stroke. We're always together. But it was one of those things where if he was sitting on the couch, I was sitting on the couch. If we were going for, if he's going for a walk, I'm going for a walk. It was just everywhere we went, we were together. And I think that did help, because I can see that isolation and that loneliness. Yeah. It really would affect your drive, and your outlook.
And my luck up.
Yeah.
So, and
yeah, it helped to create a positive outlook.
You got to cover
positive.
So positive to positive.
Close.
Positive.
There we go. Yes, positive outlook. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you want to keep going.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I had read in my research, I'm pretty much like a Google doctor now, but
she does.
Yeah. But I had read in all of the research that I was doing, I read something that said your outlook is the biggest determining factor in your outcome. Mm-hmm. And I read it a few times because it kept coming up, and I kept thinking, that is so weird. Why would your attitude directly affect a medical diagnosis, right? That's what I kept thinking. But also, we're going to do everything. We're going to listen to classical music. We're going to, we're going to sleep for 13 hours. We're going to do all of the things that everybody recommends. So if taking a positive attitude is the thing that they recommend, then we're going to do that. And I said that to Rich in rehab. I said, this sucks. There is no doubt about it that this sucks, but we're in it and there's only one way out of it. And so we might as well be positive and
Good.
have fun and just take it. I always say, like, we take it one step at a time and just that's all we look at. Because
Yeah.
he was like, when am I going to get my voice back? When am I going to be better? And I was like, number one, that depends on you. Because he would say, like, he would do this and I'd say that depends on you. Like, if you want to get it back, you're gonna have to work really hard at it.
Yeah.
But you also have to tell yourself every single day, I'm going to recover. I'm going to recover. I have no choice. I said to him in the hospital, I said, you get two choices. You can recover fully or you can fully recover. There's nothing else. There's no other choice. And obviously I will accept any condition that we're just happy he's alive and here. We're grateful for all of that. But you have to encourage him.
Yeah.
And so if he didn't get back to 100%, I wouldn't like send him packing or anything.
Good to know, right?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah. But but that was the thing where I was kind of in my head. I was like, I'm not even going to say, oh, well, maybe you'll get there. I just would always say, he would say, we come home and he would get a couple words and then he'd say, when is it going to come back? When is it going to? And I'd be like,
Yeah.
you're just going to have to keep working at it. You decide. I would always say, I said, that's up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you whether or not you're going to get it back. So now I do see that. Now I would agree with that. Your outlook is 100% your outcome, because if you don't have the inner drive, and also if you don't have people treating you normally, I think that's a huge part that people kind of don't do. People don't know how to treat you.
Yeah. Whoa. What?
Yeah.
I didn't understand you or it's
People don't even want to say,
yeah.
I don't understand, or can you slow down, or
Yeah. Just like,
can,
look at and
yeah. He came home one day and said, sometimes I feel like people think I'm dumb.
I know.
Yeah, because I'll be talking and they don't understand me, but they won't say what. They just kind of nod and walk away.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was never his experience with anybody ever before.
What happened?
Right.
When it happened, I'm selling church and it's coming out weird and we can figure this out. But what happened?
Right.
People have a hard time giving time when when
I wasn't
those challenges.
I wasn't mad about it.
Mhm.
I was unhappy where they couldn't take the time to go, oh, wait, to go into
Slow down.
dose down and up to there. Oh, okay. And then they stall it again.
Yeah.
And it's crummy, but
Yeah.
you see about sometimes or thinking, oh, let it go and let it go.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Yeah. They just sometimes people would just let him talk.
Yeah.
The thing is we're not seeing a lot. We're not seeing a ton of people.
Yeah.
We're seeing some people, but it's not like he's like out in the grocery store talking to people. I mean, he would be. He followed the other day after the blizzard and we were all home with each other for a week and a half. We had water delivery and he was outside following the water guy back and forth, chatting with him. And I was like, are you that desperate for a friend? Leave him alone. Like, come in here. And he was just back and forth. But it wasn't, you didn't have a lot of that experience because we really weren't.
People but
yeah.
Didn't want to break.
They didn't want to say like, oh, I don't understand you.
Don't do that and do that this and this and okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
People get people get weird after you're sick or anything. Like people do get weird and they treat you differently. And I just tell our friends, if we, we had people over and he was talking, and I could tell that they weren't really picking up on what he was saying, but they were just letting it. And I was like, no, 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 no. You have to tell him that you don't understand.
What are you talking about?
Right. I said, because he can take it. Right. He can take it.
I can take it.
Right.
I want to know that you're listening to me.
Right. Yeah. And, and they're just going, and I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, first of all, nobody understands the word you're saying, guys. So slow down. And so,
I get
yes.
talking about and boom, 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 and I go,
because also I have
get
noticed
one out down.
Slow it down. Because I've noticed that if you don't correct him, if you don't say, I don't really know what you're talking about, he does not realize that he said the wrong word.
Yeah.
And so he will go on, and I will just be listening, because also I do try to finish his sentences, and it makes him crazy. So he's always like, no,
I'm going to
let me get it out. And so he'll go on and on about something. And then he'll go, you know what I mean? And I just go, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he'll really be surprised, and he'll be like, really? And I'm like,
cool layers, kitten, phew. I was on Eagle manners going, and
before.
And it's going, whoa.
Yes.
It's learning how to give yourself that.
Yeah, right.
He will just go and go, and I'm like, my guy. That's what my son says. My guy.
My guy.
I don't know what you're talking about. Which, and the thing is like, you have to, I think people want to be, politically correct or what have you, and they don't want to do that. But
I don't care.
He doesn't care. That's his personality. I think a lot of people think that after you've had a stroke, and for some people it is true, your personality does change.
Yeah.
But you don't know if their personality has changed if you treat them differently. You have to treat them the same.
Right.
And that has been very frustrating for me, for him to even be like, oh, like, I feel like this person was just trying to just kind of get away from our conversation. And I'm like, who was it? Name, give me a name. Give me a name. I will explain to them. He's like, no, please.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody. There's some, some of our friends are so great and so patient, and they will say, we don't.
No, Mike, Rich.
Yeah.
Back up.
Yeah. Slow down.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Yeah. And that's kind of the new normal, but it's crazy. Everybody wants to treat you like a baby.
Yeah. I don't.
No.
Yeah.
I had posted a video of us doing a chip review or something. And I said, and he was chewing so loud. And that has always been my Achilles heel. It grosses me out. I hate the sound of it. It's not just him, it's anybody. And I said, ew, you're being so gross. Nobody wants to hear you chew. That's what I said in the video. And somebody wrote, I can't believe you would talk to your husband like that after he had a stroke, because I'm assuming if his speech is affected, then his swallowing must be affected too. And now you're online making fun of him. And I was like, number one, I understand how you think that you can infer my entire relationship in this 15 seconds, but I can assure you that he has irritated me with the way he's chewed for our entire relationship. Number one. And number two, just because my husband had a stroke does not mean I'm going to treat him with baby gloves, because he's not a baby, he's a grown man. Somebody told me that he should leave me because of that. Yeah. Somebody said, oh, well, and my heart goes out to them, because they said, well, I had a stroke, and if anybody in my life treated me like that, I would leave them. And, maybe your husband would be better off with somebody else. And I was like, I'll pack his bag. How about that? If he decides he wants to be with somebody else, I will pack his bag. It's just when you, and when you put your life on social media, obviously you have to, I cannot take any even slightly negative comment. It makes me foam at the mouth. It makes me so mad, because what we have at home is we've been together for 10 years. We're obviously, a good couple. We love each other so much, but
I
You
can
have to
tell
be,
that.
yeah,
See
like
it.
it's just like
Yeah.
I love him so much. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that we're here and that he's still here. And I can't imagine my life any other way. But also, like, I'm not going to treat him like a baby because he had a stroke. And
Yeah.
he wouldn't want me to. He doesn't want me to.
And then talk to be
Oh my
be,
God.
your, be
Yeah.
yourself.
Mhm.
But, and I think that's what people get into that, you see stroke survivors who their personalities change, and sometimes I wonder if it's because of the outer influence.
Yeah.
How all of a sudden now they're being treated differently, so now they're thinking, well, I must be so different.
Yeah.
And it just kills me. It kills me. And it also is something new to my, what's it called, like it's new to me because I'm seeing all of these stroke survivors and I'm
Yeah.
hearing all of these stories. And it just is one of those things where I don't think people know enough about strokes,
Yeah.
which is wild because the statistics are insane. 1 in 4 people will have a stroke. Every 40 seconds in the United States, somebody has a stroke. And of those strokes, it's like 75 to 80% of those strokes every day are new strokes. So to not know a stroke survivor is it's pretty crazy. Like when I read those statistics, I was like, how have I not ever met somebody who's had a stroke? Because it's so prevalent. And then I just read the other day, and this blew my mind, that 80% of strokes are preventable. 80%. And
That's crazy.
that is
It is.
insane. It's insane. Especially because I think if you did know a stroke survivor through recovery, if more people knew what it actually was like, they would change their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Rich's stroke was not in that 80%. We could not have prevented it.
Mhm.
But to know that, some people will comment and say, oh, my doctor always tells me like I'm at risk for having a stroke. And somebody said, I'm just kind of waiting for it. And I wrote back, I implore you to not. Like, you have no idea what you could be up against. Because, yeah, you might have a mini stroke like Rich had the first one, or you might have a catastrophic stroke and you might never come back from it.
Yeah.
And to just kind of be like, oh, well, I'm just like waiting to have it because the doctor said I was at risk. And people don't know enough about it. They don't know enough about coming back from it. Even just the struggle to get his language back.
Mhm.
I would not wish what we're going through on anybody.
Mhm.
And we have it pretty good.
Yeah.
Like our prognosis was extremely grim. And there was a moment where I kind of thought, this is it. This is what our life is going to be. And it's going to be so different. And Rich has made tons of strides. His recovery is miraculous compared to what they told us it was going to be.
Yeah.
And we have it good. We have a positive attitude. We laugh all the time. We're living our life. We're having a good time. But it's been pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't wish this on anybody. And we're in the percentage that's most likely going to make almost 100% comeback, and so for people to just be so kind of callous about it and I'm just like waiting to have my stroke. And it's like, no, 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 no,
I think
no.
it kind of goes back to what you were saying, where maybe people just don't know a stroke survivor. They've not had that
Yeah.
experience, so they don't see that. And even, seeing your guys' story, like you put it all out on social media, and it's easy for people to say, well, that's just TikTok or
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
And they don't know that. And to them, stroke is just something their doctor is saying.
Yeah.
It makes it like it's this, something might happen, it might not, who knows? I'll just keep going on about my life.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's shocking because when I tell you that I was shocked the day that I walked in after his stroke, I was all I did for the first 5 days was sob. I would sit next to his bed and I would just sob and cry. And these poor nurses,
Hmm.
Every time I went to the hospital, I would check in, and I was always before the, check-in time. And they would call up and they would say, "Hi, 7:15's wife is here." And they'd always do this. "She's crying. She's crying." Every single time they'd call up and say, 7:15's wife is here and she's crying. And I really was so confused because is nobody else crying in this hospital? Cry just they would every single time, "She's crying, she's down here crying." But that, I literally just sobbed. And then I would come home and me and our son would sob and we would talk about it at bedtime. And, we would go over, like, our son would tell me, "I'm really afraid that daddy will never be able to say my name again. I'm really afraid that daddy will never be able to ride his bike again." And we would talk about all of those things and we would look at pictures and
Okay.
we would just sob, and like, sorry.
You don't need to apologize.
And we do put our stuff online. We do put our life online and it looks good, but if you had seen the month before I put everything on, you would say, "Oh, this family's really going through it. We're really having a tough time." And there's a lot of things that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the realistic implications after a stroke, the financial implications, his job. We just decided that his doctors advised against going back to work. His job is, of course, 100% communication based.
Mhm.
Emails, text messages, phone calls. He is a shipping manager at a very busy lumber company, and so it's constant in and out and just constant talking.
Yeah.
And we just decided, like, we're going to wait another 6 months and reevaluate then to see if you can go back. But then, because his job is in Massachusetts, the job protection's shorter than in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, it's a year. In Massachusetts, it's 20 weeks. And then you run into worrying about health insurance, because that's the next thing we have to worry about is, are we going to lose our health insurance? His company is awesome. And they said as long as we pay what we were paying before, that they'll keep us on. But that's also, the premiums are high. So
Mhm.
now we have to make those decisions. And then it's applying for, his short-term disability only ran for those 20 weeks. And now we have to do long-term disability, but there's a gap in the middle. So financially, there's implications, and there's just a lot of things that we don't talk about
Mhm.
online, but it's going on. And and maybe we should talk about it because a lot of people are in the same position as us. And one one if we were in a different administration, i would
Yeah.
I would make this my mission to federally mandate short-term disability and have every state be the exact same. Uh, a 14-year-old boy sent me a message a couple months ago, and his dad had a stroke, and he was really scared, and he wanted to know if my husband was sleeping all of the time, and it sounded really bad. And I said, "Well, have you talked to your mom?" And he said, "My mom is just so worried about bills and what's going to happen with his job." And, we kind of talked about that. And so he lived in Georgia, where they do have short-term disability, but his dad worked in New York and they don't have short-term disability there. And so if your company doesn't have a secondary policy, so Rich's company did,
Mhm.
thank God, have a secondary policy where we'll be able to get long-term disability. But if your company doesn't offer you that, you don't even know to get it. I had no idea. I'm a bartender. If this was me, we would just be completely shit out of luck. Like, I didn't know anything about long-term policies, or, I just kind of thought, like, oh, it's something you apply through the government, and it's not.
Mhm.
And if it was a different administration, if we were focusing on different things, and maybe in the next one I will, but that would be my mission, to federally mandate job protection, job loss due to illness and disability, and all of those things, because it's so unfair to be put in a position that you can't control. like we had no control over this. And it's so unfair to be put in that position. And then on top of it, you have to take on the financial hardship
Mhm.
that you didn't even know about, and it's like, oh, well, if you were in, if his job was one state over, we'd be on a year of disability. And, but it's Massachusetts, it's only 20 weeks. And the 20 weeks was great. We'll take what we can. Because if we were in New York, he'd have nothing.
Yeah.
So it just is, you know, that is very infuriating to me that it's state by state and not federally mandated. But
So,
that's
for
for
what
a different president to
for what it's
handle,
worth, if
you
you do
know?
ever decide to make that your mission, from what I can see, you guys definitely do have the drive. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that you're making those changes if you went down that route.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be in Congress someday. Just not anytime soon. But, but it's just kind of, I just feel like with the prevalence of strokes out there,
Mhm.
the percentage of it, the amount of people who are affected by it, it still feels invisible. You know, if you're not affected by it personally, you don't know anything about it. I think that is so shocking because you know what a heart attack is, you know what cancer is, even if you don't know anybody who's had one, you know what it is. But with a stroke, it's just kind of like it's like a punchline
Yeah.
to some jokes, and it's invisible. And even we were talking to somebody at Dunkin' Donuts, and I said, "Oh, my husband had a stroke." The news was interviewing him, and somebody said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, my husband had a stroke in October," and he said, "He doesn't look like he had a stroke." And I said, "No, you're right. He doesn't look like he had a stroke. He has his gait back. He is, strong. He looks good. You can't tell that he had a stroke, but it is an invisible disability, which makes it harder for sure."
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where you're just kind of like, okay, so if he was limping, it would be like more,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I can tell, and that invisible disability is really tough too, because
Mhm.
then you go up to the counter and you try to order coffee and it's slurred or it's not coming out, and then they're wondering if you're drunk.
Yeah.
There's a video that my son took actually, and he's at the drive-through
Mhm.
and he's really having a hard time getting it out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if I'm on the other side of that drive-through, am I thinking this guy's drunk? And maybe, yeah, maybe I am. And then our son, it's cute because the video, our son reels him in and he says, Dad, can I please have a large iced coffee? When he gets him on track.
Yeah.
But it's just, if you don't know, and he has,
And I go up and tell her I have
he says, I lost my voice.
voice. And he's like, oh, oh.
Yeah.
That's like probably drunk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're working on, I had a stroke. He never really goes there though. Like he never is like, he always says I lost my voice. He never says I had a stroke.
I know. That's
Working on it.
Yeah.
That's one of our things that we're working on. But it's just the whole thing has been a shocking slap in the face, I would say. But we're doing all right. But we're doing okay.
All right. All right.
You guys are taking it in stride. I mean, going with what you said about Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, you guys just got, that big recognition too for working on that Dunkin'.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How was that process with, that, new angle on you guys?
So somebody had seen one of the, like, had asked in the cursing videos, what's next? And I wrote his coffee order and it got like 50,000 likes.
Yeah.
And I thought, we should actually practice this because that's always been his thing. He would get up, go get a coffee, go about his day. And, the other thing that I was very aware of when he was in inpatient rehab, because I wanted to be there all day. I wanted to get up and take our son to school and go and sit with him and then come back. And my sister is a nurse and she said, I know that's what you want to do, but I really need to tell you that you can't do that. Because number one, he's there to work on his therapy.
Yeah.
And she said, and number two, he will become caregiver dependent if you are there all of the time. And she said, you can do whatever you want, but I want you to take that into consideration because number one, Rich is young and so are you. We're 10 years apart. I just turned 44, so Rich is 54. And she said, you're really young and you don't want him to form that attachment to you because it will never break. And she said, you won't be able to go back to work. You won't be able to do anything. She said, you need to let him do this on his own.
I
And
started to.
yeah, and I was very conflicted by that because it is in my nature. I wanted to be right there, you know. But I listened to what she said, and I was like, okay, because I also did not want to take away his independence. I did not want to hinder that in any way. So we had a schedule. He would FaceTime me around lunchtime, and we would talk. And then we went up after school. So we would go up after school from like 3:30. We would stay till visiting hours were over. And we did that every day. Sometimes he would FaceTime me when he first woke up, but that was the schedule. And I think it really ended up working out because, as much, and sometimes I feel guilty that I wasn't there all the time, but I know that creating that caregiver dependency would have been detrimental to both of us. And so it's the same thing with the coffee order, because that was something that he's always done by himself, obviously. And I want to give him back his independence. I don't want to take that from him. And also, like, I'm not his slave. If you want a coffee, you got to go get it yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
I could.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah. And so we started with that video, and I said, oh, I'm going to say that we're going to try to get you to be Duncan's spokesperson,
It's a joke. And
It's a
then,
joke. And then we started doing it every day. And then all of our followers were just constantly tagging Dunkin' Donuts at Dunkin'. Where are you, Dunkin'? I'm like,
Dunkin'. That was crazy.
You're gonna get a cease and desist. I really thought Dunkin' was gonna send
this.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna send us a certified letter and be like, ma'am, please stop. And then one day I got a message on Instagram from one of the PR reps for Dunkin', and she said, we've seen your videos and we want to have like a little celebration for you. Would you like to do that? And I said, yeah, we'd love to. And mostly it was mostly for the followers, because they were foaming at the mouth about Duncan not reaching out yet.
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's dirty, like,
Yeah, it was like a lynch mob for Dunkin' Donuts. And so
You gotta get your coffee, right?
yeah, exactly. And so we did it. It was last Thursday? The 6th, March 6th. We went up, and Channel 10 was there, Channel 12 was there.
I thought it was like, again, back again.
Yeah.
But it was
like a party.
Yeah.
It was a party. Rhode Island Monthly was there, which was cool.
Yeah.
And it was great. They gave him free coffee for a year, which is very exciting. And we're gonna go see the Red Sox at the home opener, which is super exciting because we're both from the Boston area. We've always liked to watch the Red Sox, but also our son is playing baseball, so he's really into it, and so it's really fun. Yeah, we're bringing his little bestie.
Yeah, and he had to go and he balls into me. He doesn't feel all the balls.
He's never been to a game.
Yeah,
He's
Okay.
never.
So it's a big jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially a home opener at Fenway. That's huge.
Right.
So fun. Yeah, it really. I've been to one other home opener, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
So they gave us tickets to that, which is awesome. And then we interviewed with, Channel 10, Channel 12, Rhode Island Monthly. And we just saw today that we interviewed with Boston Globe has their boston.com. We interviewed with them today. And now it's just kind of blown up. Like our story has blown up, and it's people, all of our followers are like, I'm in Colorado and I just saw you guys on the news. I'm in Columbus and I just saw you guys on the news. So that's kind of funny. And I just actually was on last night, I was looking on Facebook, and then all of a sudden it was us, and it was like an article, and it said like, oh, stroke survivor, whatever. And I will say that it looked fake. It did look fake.
Because
like the Dunkin'
Donuts on.
And
hey.
And somebody had actually commented on
Hey, what?
Somebody commented on the Boston.com article. They said, when is Dunkin' Donuts going to stop paying to put these PR articles in the news?
Yeah.
And I wanted to write back, but then I'm not a Boston.com subscriber and I wasn't doing that. But I was like, I can assure you, this is not fake.
Yeah.
And nobody has been paid besides coffee. Nobody has been paid.
Yeah.
But, it does kind of look fake though, because we are in the jackets like total nerds. And and the story is like stroke survivor gets free coffee for a year, and it does feel kind
Yeah.
of like an ad,
Mhm.
but it's real. We're here to tell the story. But it's great because people, if we can even create a little bit of
Yeah.
awareness for specifically aphasia.
Yeah.
Stroke awareness, absolutely, but specifically aphasia, because that is what we are tackling. And that was a word that I had never heard in the 43 years of my life before. Stroke awareness, absolutely, but specifically aphasia, because that is what we are tackling. And that was a word that I had never heard in the 43 years of my life before, which is stroke. I didn't know what it was. And I was researching it, and there's different types of aphasia, and all of those things were brand new to me. And I was like, well, this can't be just me that is brand new to.
Yeah.
And I also want people to be able to understand him and to see him and say, oh, I know that guy. Like, he had a stroke and his speech isn't there. It's more about that for me. It's not about national recognition. It's not about the free coffee,
Yeah.
which is awesome, but it's about the fact that my husband has a deficit, and I don't want people to treat him differently because of it, but they're not going to know to do that unless I tell them.
Yeah.
And so that type of awareness, and if other people can, if that can kind of shed that awareness to other people and kind of just create something where people have a little more patience.
Yeah.
And also an unexpected this is the most unexpected thing, which I just think is amazing, is people from different countries, Australia, South Africa, the UK, had said to us, people send us messages all the time, but a couple people have said, I'm a speech therapist in this country, and I have a patient who has almost identical aphasia to your husband. This woman said, she was in South Africa. She said, I have he's a dad. He has 2 little kids. He has almost exactly the same type of aphasia your husband has. And he's been getting very frustrated with how slow his progress has been. And so we watch your videos in our speech therapy sessions. And he's going to go home and he's going to watch it with his family. And so to be able to give anybody who is struggling in this space a little bit of hope really is unexpected, but it's also incredible.
Yeah.
And I've heard it from a lot of people. I'm a speech therapist. We watch your videos in the hospital, or I have these patients and we watch your videos. And for any stroke survivor to be able to go from a place that feels super, super hopeless to kind of feeling that tug of, maybe I can do it. This guy's doing it. And, he was told he would never talk again, but now look at him now. And
Yeah.
if that's where we can be, then I'll make videos forever.
Yeah.
I will.
You guys are in a point. You had said earlier, when that first ER doctor made it seem hopeless, you went from being hopeless to now you guys are that hope for people, to some
Right.
degree.
Yeah. And it
That's
just,
that's a wild ride. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Right.
That's like the way I describe it. It's a wild ride. But if there was somebody who I could have looked at, even though it was only 5 months ago, it feels like it was a lot longer ago, but
Yeah.
it was 5 months ago yesterday. And if there was somebody who, stood where I stood and was showing their positive progress, it would have been very mentally, it would have really benefited my mental health at that time, because I did go on TikTok and Instagram and I did look up stroke survivors, and I immediately shut my phone because it was, people who had been in the hospital for months and, like years, and they've had all these terrible strokes and all these terrible complications and tubes and this and that. And I just was like, nope, I cannot look at that. And it was not, starting the TikTok and stuff was not me being like, well, I'm going to show this. It just kind of happened naturally. But
Yeah.
there is a positive side to recovery, and you don't really see it
Mhm.
unless you're in it, and I think it's important, especially if you're in it really in those really early stages, it's important to be able to look at somebody else and go, okay, well, they did it. So maybe we can do it no matter what the doctor says.
Yeah.
Because doctors, they know a lot of things, but the brain is very mysterious. We
Yeah.
don't really know how the brain really truly works,
Mhm.
and so for a doctor to just say, he will never, he will never, he will never, it's detrimental because it maybe is not true.
It sets
Yeah.
precedent that, you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
And
make.
it's so easy if you saw, your loved one in this position where, he wasn't really moving, he wasn't talking, he didn't really seem to know what was going on. And then if a doctor says, well, this is how it's going to be, there are some people out there who just accept that. And,
Yeah.
and they say, okay, well, we'll get a hospital bed, we'll get a wheelchair, and we'll prop you in front of the TV because I got to go back to work.
Yeah.
And the thing is I didn't even really, it was one of the aides who said that to me. And she said, I just want you to know they don't really know what he's going to end up like. And she said, they don't know Mr. Rich. They don't know what Mr. Rich is like. And, she said, they don't decide how you recover. You decide how you recover.
Yeah.
And I held on to that. I still hold on to that,
No.
because that woman will never decide how you recover.
I've told that. I don't even know how many people I've told that to where, I go in and I'm working with someone and they'll say something similar to what you said, or, oh, I just hit 6 months after my stroke and the doctor said 6 months is all I get for recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
The number of times I've told people, no disrespect to doctors, like you said, they're great, but they don't know what they're talking about. And, you've hit on everything as a provider myself that I tell people where,
Yeah.
you got to keep that positive mindset. You have to put the motivation in. And, my thing is I can give you every tool in the world. If
Right.
you don't pick them up and do something with it,
Right.
well,
Exactly.
that's that determinant is, are you going to keep going? Not it's 6 months, or oh, this was how dense your stroke is, or the one thing we can say, we don't know how far you're going to go, sure, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you can't go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Somebody had said the 6 month thing, and they said, somebody had said, he has to get right into intensive therapy. And they were explaining it to me. And then they said, and then you'll get to 6 months, and then it'll really, the progress will drastically drop off. And then after a year, that's pretty much where he's going to be. And then it was your new occupational therapist.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said that to us. I think it was a doctor. It wasn't any of your therapists.
Yeah.
But we talked to his new occupational therapist and, his outpatient therapist. And she said, I'm sure that people have told you that after a year, progress drastically slows down. And she said, I just want to let you know that is not the experience that I've had.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to put a timeline on this because you can recover far after a year. And she said, but that's what everybody tells you is kind of like when you get to a year, that's where you're at.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference. But also, I will say that, if you are just going through the beginning stages of stroke recovery, it is so impossible to see outside of where you're at. Even if you're watching the videos, even if you're saying, okay, well, this person has a really good recovery story, it's really hard when you're there to
Yeah.
look outside of it and say, okay, well, maybe that can be me. You really have to start to get some like traction going. But it's just I never would have thought we would, as much as I hoped and wished and prayed we would be as doing as well as we are now. There was also kind of that realistic part of my brain where it was kind of like, don't really expect it. Don't, so you can't really figure out where you're going until you're there,
Yeah.
Even when we scheduled this interview, I kind of thought, oh God, I don't really know. I don't even really know if Rich will be able, because we scheduled this like kind of a while ago. And I was kind of thinking like, I don't really know how much Rich will be able to like participate, but we're going to do it anyway because it's important. And then we also scheduled last month, we scheduled an interview for May for our local news.
Mhm.
And, it's stroke recovery month, it's stroke awareness month. And I was kind of thinking, okay, well, this is good. It's going to give us some time because we can work on it, work on it, work on it. But I'm also thinking like, I don't really know how much he'll be able to participate. But now I'm thinking, I don't know how much I'll have to participate now, because I think in the next couple months, I think he will be able to fluidly tell his story. And then I can go back to being the introvert that I was before. That I was and loved.
I think go a little longer.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I can't talk.
Yeah.
I would say to him, because of course, and after the stroke happened, then everybody was reaching out and everybody wanted to talk to me. And I was voted most talkative in high school. But as I got older, and I met Rich, you can't have two larger than life personalities at home. Somebody has to kind of, take the back seat. And I was happy to do it. And now I'm the one who has to be out in the forefront because that's the ability that I have, and that's totally fine. But I would say to him at the hospital, I would say, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I don't want to talk to everybody. You're making me be I need you to get it together. I need you to, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'd say, I'm so mad at you that I'm in this position to have to be the one talking all the time. And he would just laugh because he knows we would have huge birthday parties for our son, 60 people birthday parties in our backyard. And Rich would go out and talk to every single person, hold every baby, play with every kid. And I would be in the kitchen kind of like fiddling, doing this and doing that. And I would talk to people, but he was always out. And then he'd come in and he'd be like, oh my God, did you talk to so and so? Did you talk to so and so? And I'd say, no, I didn't. And he'd go, well, I talked to everybody here. And he knows everybody's story and the whole thing. And I just was thinking, like, when it happened, and I was like, I'm not doing these birthday parties like that. So you're just going to have to yeah. And that's why I said, I go, you just have to get it back together because I can sustain it for a while, but I'm getting tired.
What 1 month?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. You're on the clock now.
Yeah. But it's just the dynamic has changed, but it's for the greater good.
It's
for the greater good of the relationship. Yeah.
I guess one last thing I want to touch on is you were mentioning the occupational therapist. What is therapy looking like for you guys right now in terms of OT, PT, speech, constant therapy, that sort of thing? What are you guys doing now, and how's it going?
Doing PT.
No.
OT.
OT.
And really good.
You do speech.
And it's shoot Jake and
speech therapy.
Okay.
It's hey, I saw.
I'll tell you, you get to slow down now.
Yeah, take your time.
They're reading.
You're going twice a week to speech.
To twice a week to speech.
1 week.
1 week of OT, which was 2 weeks, and going and headed.
Yeah, they just weaned him down.
Since
Okay.
Going out and it's phenomenal. They're great, and I couldn't say, but
yeah, we found when we first were discharged from rehab, they kind of put you under like a lot of pressure to pick your outpatient therapist, which I do think it would be really important if there was some sort of like stroke network at a state to state basis where you could call somebody else who'd been through it and said, they want me to do this and they want me to pick this because it's so emotionally charged. And you are just, when I was making these decisions, I was so afraid I was going to make the wrong decision. And, they handed me this sheet of paper and they basically were like, you got to figure it out, whether you want them to come to your house or you want to go. And somebody said, well, if they come to your house, it's not as intensive. And, there's a lot of pressure to make the right decision. And I didn't originally make the right decision. I just picked the highest rated ones, and it was the wrong choice because his first speech therapist was a sweetheart. But, when we walked in, everybody in the waiting room was like five.
Yeah.
And
Everybody was.
I was like, okay, I'm not sure that this is the right place, but maybe we're just, maybe it's just the time of day. And we met with her, and I could tell that she really wasn't, she, probably had done her rotation, her stroke rotation, but she really wasn't well versed in aphasia recovery.
Yeah.
But I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and we went, the first time, and then we went the second time, and she asked me to come in with him. And I kind of I didn't want to go in. I'm respectfully not the one who had the stroke.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who has problems with my speech. And I could tell that she didn't really feel comfortable being alone with him, which is totally legit. She was young. She's probably like 26, 27.
Yeah.
And that's not her normal patient. I get it. But then it turned into a 45-minute session, was 20 minutes of me talking, and then 20 minutes of him doing something that we had been doing at home.
Yeah.
Because we were doing a lot of stuff at home. They had actually recommended, his speech therapist in the hospital had recommended downloading Constant Therapy. So we were already doing Constant Therapy. And, we were doing it in rehab. He was doing it in rehab with his speech therapist there. They were showing him how to do it. And then when we came home, that's what we were doing. He was getting up, we were taking our kid to school, and then we were sitting at the dining room table, and we were doing Constant Therapy. And then we were working on, common phrases. And, we also were using some recovery tools from Flint Rehab. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And so, and that's what we were doing. And I was looking stuff up and kind of like doing the research at home. So when we went to therapy, one, I thought it would be a little more advanced than what we were doing at home, because I'm obviously not, educated in that. But then it was the same thing with the speech therapist. So we had gone through like a major hospital in Rhode Island, and they hire a lot of new grads. And everybody starts somewhere, right? And that's totally, I have nothing against that. But when we go in and you say, what's your goal? I don't want to have to tell you that his goal is to go back to who he was before his stroke. That should be a natural assumption. He's an adult. We're not trying to, figure out that he can do his ABCs. We want him to be back to where he was. And so the first month we were out of rehab was that, and I was panicked. Like, I made the wrong decision. I was crying about it. I was like, I made the wrong decision. I can't believe this. And I really thought, because I also had the 3, 6, 12-month thing in my head, I'm screwing it up. I'm screwing up the first 3 months. It's so important, and I'm screwing it up. And, I reached out to rehab, and they said, well, we really can't help you navigate it, but we can't, on our end, we can't make the phone calls, but you can switch, And so I did some research, and I found a rehab center that's affiliated with Spalding out of Boston. And we switched to that one, and it was really the best decision. Number one, everybody was in the same building. We were going to like multiple buildings before. Everybody was in the same building. But when we walked in, everybody in the waiting room was like at least 75. And I was like, this is it. This is the place we need to be. I really said to him, I was like, this is great. Everybody here is old, and this is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Because they have experience with strokes,
Yeah.
And the first assessment he did was your physical therapy.
Yeah.
And the woman was just so encouraging. And she, there was no doubt in her mind, and she said, if you had what is your biggest, most outlandish goal? And, like, let's just hear it. And I said, I want him to be back on a bicycle. He and our son used to ride bikes literally 100 times a day. Like they'd be going out every half hour. And she was like, okay, like, let's work on that.
Yeah.
And he did physical therapy. It started with 3 times a week. He graduated from physical therapy pretty quick.
Yeah.
Maybe like, I don't even know, like in the first like 8 weeks, maybe. And then we went to occupational therapy, and we were assessed there, and it was the same thing. And they were funny because they had seen our TikToks.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God, I literally just watched you on my TikTok this morning. And they were super excited to work with Rich, because of that. And because he does show such a positive attitude in those things. And they were like, we're going to get you all the way back. Though every occupational therapist that he's had has been so incredible. The one he had in inpatient rehab, we ran into her the other day,
Yeah.
and I couldn't stop hugging her, because in those really, first vulnerable stages of recovery, she's teaching him daily living activities,
Yeah.
how to shower.
Yeah.
And she treated him with so much dignity and respect, and she was just so incredible. And I didn't even know what occupational therapy was before that. And then we met her, and I was like, you must be the best one in the country. Like, she's so incredible,
Yeah.
positive energy. And then we went to his new occupational therapy office, and they're all the same way. So you must be a certain type of person. And the girls that he works with, they're like in their, like, probably late 20s, early 30s, but they all have experience with stroke survivors.
Know everything.
They know everything.
Yes.
They want to push him. They're not afraid to push him.
Yeah.
Nobody treats him like they're gonna break him, which is huge, because I think, those new grads and stuff kind of get a little, oh, I don't know. And after his first occupational therapy session with our girl Nicole, we were driving home. This was in the end. This was like, I think, like the beginning of December. It was his very first session with her, and he was just, he was just so excited, and I couldn't understand a word he was saying, but he was really, really excited about it. And he said to me, I know in my heart I'm gonna come back. And it was like, if you just have one, or in his case, a team, he's got a great team of therapists, but
Yeah.
if you just have that one therapist who gives you kind of that, confidence. But he was like, I know in my heart, I'm gonna get it back. I'm gonna get all of it back. And that was huge, So he now has just been downgraded to one occupational therapy session a week, which I think he'll be sad when they tell him that he doesn't need it anymore. But he was mostly going for his right arm, which now is, extremely mobile. Like, he couldn't even, for the longest time, he couldn't even pick it. He was literally picking it up. He does have a little bit of numbness still in your fingers, right?
Yeah, nice numbers. Beginning big.
It's coming back.
Yeah.
But there is some loss of feeling still.
Yeah.
So, you have to squeeze his hand really hard, and then he's like, oh, that feels pretty light. And then he has a little bit of numbness in his face still. And in your chest?
No, just air and up in there.
Up in there.
Right.
Yeah. And but
it's calling back. And every day I'm feeling it's getting better, because it was a knee and up there, and but even it up or up in there. That's
when we first came home, we would go for a walk, and he would be like fiddling with his leg, and it was moving, and he's fiddling, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he yelled, it's dead.
it's dead.
And I was like, oh, you can't feel it? And he was like, no. And then the feeling started to come back, and then it would jump around.
Yeah.
It's been kind of crazy to watch it in real time happen, to be like a front row seat of that real time recovery. Because it happens it's not linear, and that's, I think, another thing to really remember about recovery is it's just because you get your toes back doesn't mean it's going to move all. It's just not linear. It's same with speech. Just because you can say your coffee order doesn't mean that it's all back. And the thing about the coffee order is it was a great measuring stick, because if you watch day 1 and if you watch day 31, the progress is insane. It's insane. And so then I just started, now we're doing the weather.
The weather.
Because it's more, there's more involved to it. We can work in some more words. But I kind of was like, we nailed the coffee order. Like, we got it. We still practice it, when we go to order coffee.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll stand in line and I'll say, do you want to practice before we do it? And sometimes he says yes, sometimes he says no. And then he gets up there, and now at both the Dunkins that we go to, the cashiers know him. So they give him a lot of patience. And there's one kid who works at the Dunkin' who is he was the first one who recognized how hard Rich was working.
Yeah.
And, we went in every day. And then one day he said, "You're getting better and better every day." And we were like on cloud nine. We were ready to adopt this kid. He's like 17 years old. I wanted to write a letter to his mother. Like, he just is the sweetest kid. And then now I've gone back to work. And so I work in a restaurant. Sometimes I work days, sometimes I work nights. And at first, going back was nerve-wracking, but also everybody was ready. I was ready.
Yeah.
He was ready. Our bank account was ready. And
The bank account.
yeah, and but I kind of thought, what's going to happen? Is he going to go out? Is he going to do coffee? Is he going to do this? And then the first day I went back to work, he sent me a picture of an iced coffee sitting on the table. And I was like, "Oh my God, you did it." And he was like, "Yeah." I go, "How'd it go?" He said, "Great." I'm like, "Okay." And then the next week I came in and he was telling me how he went to Dunkin' Donuts and our boy Jared was working.
Yeah.
And he said, "I went and I got stuck
I got second
on the order."
in an order, and it was
And then the thing
and
is,
it was checking me out. It
Yeah.
is
he was prompting him.
yeah.
Like, because he had watched me do it because I stand next to him. If he gets stuck, I say the first letter or whatever. And he said, "I got stuck." And he said, "Large?" And he knew what the order was. And he wasn't like, "Okay, large iced coffee, got it."
Didn't
Yeah.
come down.
Yeah.
So.
But like, he couldn't get it out. But the kid who works there knows what he orders. But
Yeah.
he gave him that time and that grace and also prompted him when he needed to be prompted.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're obsessed with this kid now. He is just, I've written to Dunkin' Donuts about him. I've told everybody at the Dunkin' PR. I've told everybody at the one he worked at. Like, he's just such a good kid. Cause like, who does that at like 18, 19 years old,
Yeah.
And it was just, so it's good now because every Dunkin' he goes to knows him now.
Yeah.
And so, he can be he's out in the wild ordering coffee. And it's been great. It really has been great. But the Dunkin' order has been just such a great measuring stick of progress.
Yeah.
And now we're working on, other things. But I will say that even just working on the Dunkin' order, like I will say, like your everyday speech has, I think, over the past couple of weeks exploded.
Yeah.
You're forming more fluid sentences.
Yeah.
And, there's sometimes we'll go out and we'll be in the car and he'll just be talking and it's just like it was before. Like I understand everything he says.
And then boom.
Yeah.
It's gone.
And he falls off the cliff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
That happens. But
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
If he's tired, forget it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Like if he's at the end of the day, I'll ask him something and he'll be like, "Please don't make me talk." "Oh, okay. All right." And then, our son is like, "Well, Dad did this, this, and this, so
Yeah.
we've got a mandated reporter who tells us everything, but
you got a speech therapist, mandated reporter.
exactly. We have everything. We have everything. But yeah, so, and also while I'm at work, now that we are tapering down in therapy, it's both very exciting, but it's also kind of makes me a little nervous, because these are the things that we still have to, because just because they say you've passed this part of physical therapy, that doesn't mean it's over.
Right.
It just means that you no longer have the supervision, basically.
Yeah.
And so the physical part, I'm not that worried about. The OT, I'm really not that worried about, but it is the speech. And so now we're down to 2 times a week. If it were up to me, he would go twice a day, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
But so then when I have to work during the day, I will leave out homework and it's constant therapy. And then it's like we have some stroke like workbooks and stuff. And I'll say, I really need you to do this. I really need you to work on this today. Because obviously we are working on it in the day-to-day and the just regular conversation. That's speech therapy. But if I'm not here, I'm worried that he's not talking to anybody. He says he talks the dog around the corner. He says he just talks
I talks to
the dog.
a duck.
The dog, yeah.
Charlie.
So, but he is doing the speech therapy, the constant therapy. And it's great because he's not just doing the speech exercises. He's doing all of the other stuff, which is the daily living stuff, the money,
Yeah.
which he's so like he's nails all that stuff, which is good though too, because if he starts to get frustrated with the speech part, I'll say, okay, like let's shift gears
Yes.
and let's
Yeah.
work on the money, or let's work on
Yeah.
the maps, or let's work on something else. And the constant therapy app is incredible. It is incredible. We just had a call with Teddy's team,
Mhm.
which is the nonprofit that Teddy Bruschi started when he had a stroke. And I said, "Oh yeah, will we do constant therapy?" And I said, you know about constant therapy?" And she was like, "No, not really." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And everybody who messages me talking about, their loved one's stroke, or what, because a lot of people will message me and say, somebody did it yesterday. They said, "My husband's coming home from inpatient and I'm really scared." And I'd say, "Okay, these are the things you need to do. You need to download the constant therapy app, and you guys need to go over it together," because we would do it together.
Yeah.
And when he first came home, we were doing it, and it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
That was hard.
Like even like repeating the words,
Yeah.
all of those things. But it's such a great tool for people like me and other caregivers who don't have that education. And then it kind of like created like a blueprint for me to do other stuff with him.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, okay, well, we did this, we were doing this on the app, so let's do it in a different way.
Yeah.
The filling in the sentences and
Yeah.
the word choice and all that stuff. So it's great. And I literally tell everybody, I should
Yeah.
be on the payroll, really. Yeah.
I have an end to payroll.
Yeah. Yeah. Put me right on it. Because I tell everybody about it, because also it's nice, it's an independent activity.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need somebody to be doing with it. Um, and there's a sense of like success, I think,
Yeah.
because he'll go back and do the same thing, and then he will be like, "I got 100%." It's that instant gratification.
Yeah.
I got 85%, I got 100%. I'll be like,
Yeah.
great. And then there's somewhere he'll be like, "I got 70%." I'm like, "Do it again."
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do it. He does it almost every single day.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great tool. We love it.
I think so too, but I'm glad that you guys are finding that with it as well.
Yeah. I mean, and I really do tell everybody about anybody who says, "I want to work with my, whoever with their speech." And I'm like, "You got to download constant therapy first." Because it kind of teaches
Yeah.
the other person how to be like a mini speech therapist, the
Yeah.
things to work on, the things to focus on. And it gives you more of it really did help me to understand what he understood.
Hmm.
That was like a big thing,
Yeah.
because in the beginning, I couldn't tell if he knew the word and just couldn't say it, or just couldn't pick it, or if he didn't even understand the meaning of the word.
Mm.
Right. And so when we would start to do the questions where you would fill in the right answer, and then he would fill in the right answer, and I'm like, okay, no, he does absolutely know what these words mean. That helped too, because you don't understand really the depths of the aphasia, and how, his really is strictly expressive. It does not affect him intellectually, which is a big relief, because that's just going to be a really tough challenge.
Yeah.
But I didn't know until we started doing that. And I remember one day I asked him to write cat, and he wrote happy. And the whole time he's writing it, and he's, and it's not even clicking that it's wrong.
Mhm.
And then he shows it to me, and I said, "Does that say cat?" And he looked at it and he goes, "What the fuck?" And I was like, and that helped me understand.
I was putting it
Yeah.
down, and it's one chicken.
Yeah, happy. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, puppy.
Chicken. And that really helped me understand the kind of like the thought process behind aphasia, because I was like, oh, okay. He thinks it's the right word. His brain is telling him, "Nope, you got it, keep going." And then the minute he disconnects from that and looks at it, or the same thing, like he never corrects himself mid word.
Hmm.
It's always at the end of the word, or the end of what he's trying to say. He never ever mid corrects. And I think that's very interesting because it's like his brain is telling him, like, nope, this is right. You're on the right track. And then afterwards, it's kind of like, let's roll the tape back. Nope, that was wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's very interesting to
Yeah.
know. And then you're able to better communicate with other people. He doesn't know that it's not right until he's done saying it. Don't even
Yeah.
try to interrupt him. It's not going to work because he's going to insist on repeating the same thing over and over and over until
And
he
I
gets it.
say it, and I say it, and I say it, and I come out done.
Yeah. It's like, because people will be like, oh, do you mean? I'm like, no, no, no. You gotta let him get it out.
Just have them go through that playback.
Yeah.
He's gotta say chicken 100 times. You just gotta let it happen. Because he'll be like, did you see the chicken? No, that's not the right word. The
No.
chicken.
No.
No, the chicken. Nope. The news. There we go. We have it. It's just Aphasia's a trip. It's a trip. It's crazy. The whole thing has been
Crazy.
Yes.
Well,
On a nut.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's been great hearing about your guys' story. I know it's been a trip, but like you said, it seems like you guys are navigating it on that day-to-day basis, and you're doing the best you can and keeping that positive mindset, and that's awesome. And I know on my end, and I know, on our team, my team here, we can't wait to see what comes next for you guys. So
I know. We're hoping for the Today Show. We're not gonna lie.
I'll join the TikTok horde of tagging the Today Show for you guys.
He needs to be. We want to do the whole New York circuit, so he needs to be sitting. I don't even know if she's in New York on Drew Barrymore's couch because the man watches it every single day. He watches the Drew Barrymore show every day. I think it's so weird that he watches it, but that's where I want to see him next, right on that couch, right next to Drew.
If you guys share this on TikTok, you got to tell Drew Barrymore, just comment wall and then Today Show comment wall.
Yes, we'll definitely share this on TikTok. We will definitely share this on TikTok. Yes. But yeah, we'll see what happens next. But even if you just are just back to conversationally.
Take a conversation any day.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be on the Today Show.
Yeah. I could wait.
Yeah, we can wait. We can wait. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much. This
of course.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right.